All the intelligence community they've been making headlines left and right. And we have DNI Tulsi Gabbard, who has just pulled the plug on the security clearances for 37 current and former intel officials. And there are a lot of the people that have been tied to this Russiagate saga. She's accusing them of politicizing intel and betraying trust of the American people. And she even went out and posted their names online. And so Trump gave the go-ahead. Gabbard pulled the trigger. Now we're looking at some serious shakeups right now with the intelligence community.
Do we have deep state actors that are trying to influence our presidential elections? Is that what we're concluding here?
Yes, we have people within the intelligence community. Again, when you look at this example of who President Obama charged with this task, John Brennan, James Clapper, James Comey at the highest levels, but also those who worked as careerists within the intelligence community who did not object to their manipulation and manufacturing of intelligence.
So, Matt, one of the things that we ask all the time here on this show is where is the accountability? Where is the action? And once again, it's Tulsi Gabbard that's bringing it to the American people.
Yeah, see, what's exciting about this is the kind of thing you want to see as the next step. The first thing you do is you go after the big names, right? The big documents about Russiagate and the Comeys and the Clappers, and everyone knows them, right? But for every one of those people, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of other people underneath them whose names you don't know, but who are very important because they're the people who go out and implement, supposedly, the will of every administration. And these are the people who live, eat, and breathe Washington, D.C. So to actually see people like that be named and their security clearance be revoked, which means even more maybe than it sounds at first glance, is an enormous step forward.
Chris, Tulsi Gabbard says that being entrusted with a security clearance is a privilege and not a right. So how big of a deal is this?
Right. It's also a very lucrative privilege. It's one that keeps you currently employed in your position, gets you access to things that you can use for good or for evil. And it is extremely valuable in the private sector where it usually follows people. Tulsi Gabbard has proven herself to be one of the absolute standout members of this administration. Someone who a lot of Republican senators really wanted to reject, but who's come in here and has been bringing receipts and has been holding people accountable. Now, she's only got the president, at her suggestion, only has certain powers to actually hold people accountable, fire them, take away their security clearance, which many people keep into their retirement, past their retirement. The rest of it's going to come down to the Department of Justice. But she's doing an excellent job. This is something that we want to see. Matt's completely right. There are major implications for this. It's going to impact these folks. Naming them is excellent. Put them on the history books as people who've actually done this, as opposed to being able to hide in the shadows and behind keyboards and screens. Now the next step is going to be with Cam Bondi, and she's yet to prove herself.
Chris, I think this is a really important point that if you're sitting there at home, you may not fully comprehend, because when you hear security clearance, you kind of think, well, okay, you're given a clearance by the government to see certain things, and that's great. And most people would think, after you leave your job, that's gone, and may not have a full understanding of the implications of that status that gives you and the sorts of things you were just talking about. And then there's other people, right, like all of us, realize everything's classified and, sort of ridiculous in the government. And so people might downplay this. But the security clearance, according to what you just said, it confers a certain status, right, in Washington. And explain more about how it means it's lucrative.
Well, it's something that you'll list on your resume. That you're able to, you won't always have access, of course, to the same systems that you were able to have access to, but you're legally allowed to handle and see different materials because you're someone who has been judged by the country to be trustworthy, someone who's gone through the rigmarole, someone whose friends and family may have been interviewed, whose finances may have been looked at. It depends on how high the security clearance goes. Maybe someone who's even been subjected to polygraphs and other different ways of being able to detect whether or not someone is stressed out when they're telling a lie, or whether they can't tell a lie, or whether they're actually being honest. Sometimes you can gain those. It can be difficult. Those security clearances, if you're working in outside firms for as a liaison with the government, can allow you to actually work with materials which you would not otherwise be able to work with. So there's tons of private companies out there that handle confidential and classified information as part of their services they provide to the United States federal government, especially in the Department of Defense. Whether you're building aircraft, working in other military technology, different spy technology, different sometimes even just basic things like telecommunications technology and cell phones. And those people, once they're in the private sector, those are the ones who make some of the zip codes around Washington, D.C., the most expensive and the wealthiest zip codes in the country, which means basically on the planet, is because defense contractors, those people who are in that industry, those people who provide those services and are only able to provide those services in liaison with the government if they're people who've received that security clearance check, who've been able to pass that mark as someone who is trustworthy, who has gone through those background checks. You take that away, you take that path to a lot of money away from people, even if they say, you know what, I'm done with Trump, I'm leaving, I hate this government, or I'm done with this grind, I'm done with what I've been doing in the bureaucracy, it's time for me to make some money, or whatever reason you have for actually wanting to go into that, it closes those doors. There's a lot of things you still can do, but since your expertise and your contacts have been built around an industry where everything, to your point, Matt, is classified, it kind of nukes your experience. What's your resume now? If you can't look at things or talk to the same people in the same way or deal with these subject matters, even from the outside anymore, with the skill base you've had in the years you put in.
So the last few weeks, Tulsi Gabbard has been saying that the intel community has been weaponized. And she went out and, like we said, she named names. So let's get into some of the 37 that have been just revoked their security clearance. So let's start with Vin Nguyen, who is currently the NSA's chief AI officer. Oh, I'm sorry. You just want access to absolutely everything. Just go ahead and connect right into the government's AI system. He was the top aide to James Clapper, who was Obama's DNI. He directed the cyber strategy during the 2016 election interference and pressured his cyber deputy into agreeing with the conclusion that Putin ordered the hack to help Trump win the 2016 presidential election. That's one of the 37. Let's move on to Mar Bitar, who says he is Biden's senior director for intelligence programs on the White House NSC staff. He's Adam Schiff's top legal advisor and played a key role in the first impeachment of President Trump. You get down to the bottom and you see the United Nations Relief Works Agency. That group has helped provide material support for terrorists. There are 9 UNRWA employees that took part in the terrorist activities on October 7th in Israel. This group has approximately 13,000 employees in Gaza, 440 active members in the Hamas military operations. Like, guys, that doesn't sound too good to me when we're like, oh, we could just go through and list off like all these terrorist organizations.
See, I mean, this is the kind of thing that this show exists to present. I mean, here are people you'd never heard of, but you're in charge of AI for the NSA, and you were pressuring a whistleblower and telling them you better get with the program and go along with what we're going to pretend, about Trump and Putin. I mean, the fact that these people are still there, this is exactly the kind of thing the American people are sick and tired of. And this is just a great little first stab in the right direction, because as Chris says, and this means something, right, to take away a security clearance. Yeah, they're not being prosecuted, but that is a sign of status and a path to cash, as Chris is saying. So this is the kind of thing that, you do more of this, people will pay attention.
So how telling is it, Chris, that these people keep kind of showing up in all these anti-Trump operations over and over and over again? The Democrats are trying to tell us, oh no, these are just partisan Intel employees. But I do remember something about a Hunter Biden laptop situation where the Intel community said, oh no, nothing was made up there. It's just all Russian disinformation.
I mean, some of these folks in these positions may have been nonpartisan back in the day when both the parties were just on the same team with the intel agencies and with not disrupting anything about the international order, about not disrupting anything with the Pentagon, then maybe they wouldn't have had a strong opinion on Romney versus Obama or Bush versus H.W. Bush versus Clinton. Maybe those type of people wouldn't care. But Donald Trump threatened to disrupt their systems. And because of that, they went strongly against the person. They really wanted to take him down. And now they're good. But a lot of these things also, like UNWR, or UN Relief World Organization, whichever one is called. Uh, that shows that ideology is actually everywhere, even in these top posts. That one, these are lucrative positions. Two, that they attract ideological people. It's not a very good sign. And watching you go through just a few of those names right there, and watching what Tulsi Gabbard's doing, and just there's the AI guy who was pressured by Clapper to pressure his people to change this aspect of the report. Makes me so wish we had actually had a government in Barack Obama that was willing to do this in the reports that came out in the lead up to the Iraq war, to go back and say, okay, we're going to dig into this intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to know how this report was made. Why is the conclusion so different from everything else in the report? Where was the pressure and who's responsible? This is a kind of a system that has gone on for a very long time in Washington, D.C., and this is the first time in a long time that it's really being dismantled.
Well, we have two more to highlight. They're key players in the organization of the Russia hoax at the highest level. Stephanie O'Sullivan was the senior most intel official as a woman and the second highest ranking intel officer back in 2016. She's a former principal deputy director of the National Intelligence under Clapper and Obama and a trustee for InQtel, which is a CIA-backed venture fund that was established back in 1999. And Emily Horn, I've heard of Emily Horn's name before, just in stories that have come up. She's the director of strategic communication for the National Security Council under Barack Obama. And from 2017 to 2018, she was the head of global communications for Twitter. Wait a minute. Hold on. You're telling me social media companies and Intel were all getting together. And she was also the NSC senior director for press and spokesperson under Biden. And she protected government Russian disinformation guidelines. Matt, I've been reliably assured that social media companies, they did not take their cues from the government. They had completely separate standards, and they would never infringe on our rights just because the government said so.
Well, Jill, I'm very sorry that you've been misled by all the conspiracy theories in right-wing media. Terrible thing. I mean, again, this is just music to my ears. This is exactly the kind of thing. These are the kinds of players that they move in and out of government and they play the political game. And this is the only way to stop this is by naming them and by starting to at least take their security clearance away, which again is a sign of disrespect. It's taking status away. We need a whole lot more to come. But the goal here, as Chris says, is this goes against both parties' actions in the past, by the way. You actually want people who are trying to act as honest brokers and do the job that intelligence is supposed to do, which is to provide information to political officials to make decisions for the country. And you cannot have the Republican form of government if you have people in the IC going in and out of communications companies and censoring people en masse. It's absolutely insane.
Chris, it's just like, oh, I'm just going to be over there on Capitol Hill and then I'm going to become a lobbyist. Like they're just kind of doing the same things all over, except this is just strictly with Intel.
Strictly with Intel. And some of them go to Capitol Hill from inside the executive to advise congressmen and senators and then develop those relationships, which are also lucrative and important. And then, there's war is big business. Spying is big business. The confidentiality and secret clearances are big business in Washington, D.C. Information is money and information is power. And that's what they've been cut off from. And that's what's so important. I mean, I remember a few years ago talking to a U.S. senator who has since left. And he told me that the only reason he was still in Washington, despite all his disillusionment and how much he hated it, was he still got to sit in on the U.S. Senate intel briefings. And that just having access and just knowing about this information, which he did not use in his later career, just having access to it, knowing about it was so fascinating to him that he was going to stay in for another couple of years. That's how addictive it can be.
I love that Tulsi is giving us the names. I love that we actually can go through and bring you, the viewers, exactly who has been stripped of their security clearance and what is actually going on behind the curtain in Washington, D.C. And remember that list. When people on TV, on legacy media are going to try and tell you, these people, they're just pure. They want the best for the country. Okay, well, remember that list.